right, guys, so we got some breaking news here. It seems like a former business partner of Grant Cardone is now publicly telling people that Grant Cardone was, and possibly still is, being investigated by the FBI for some criminal issues, guys. Big deal. Big deal. Now, the individual I'm referring to, of course, is Gary Brecka. I talked about him a few weeks ago. Gary Brecka and Grant Cardone have both sued each other at this point. If you don't know Gary Brecka, he started a company with Grant Cardone. It was called 10X Health, and he was not satisfied with the direction that Grant and the other business partners took that company, so he decided to leave, and then lawsuits started flying around. Gary Brecka started his own company. The Ultimate Human, I think, is what the company is called now. Yeah, the Ultimate Human. So he started his own company, and now lawsuits are going back and forth. And Gary's talking about this publicly, and obviously, this has to be, well, I can't say that for sure, but this is obviously something he's getting sued by Grant. So this is obviously something that he okayed with his lawyer to say. So this isn't just like some random person throwing out accusations against Grant Cardone, because obviously lawsuits are going back and forth. So clearly he talked to his lawyer and he's like, yeah, you can say that Grant Cardone is being looked at by the FBI, right? So who knows, guys? We may be getting closer to the day where Grant Cardone might be behind bars. You can't say for sure, but fingers crossed, guys. Fingers crossed. We may at some point see Grant Cardone behind bars. Now, before we get into that issue, there is actual video. We're going to cover all of this in just a second of Gary Brecka talking about Grant Cardone being investigated by the FBI. Before we get into that, I want to talk about another issue that Grant Cardone was recently going to, and these two stories are connected, so I want to talk about this first. Now, a few months ago, I think it was about 3 months ago at this point, about 3 months ago, I did a story. Grant Cardone made a massive mistake, and in that video, I talked about how Grant Cardone had sued the former CEO of T-Mobile, John Legere, because back in 2023, John Legere did this he was in this live stream where he said some very not nice things about Grant Cardone. He called him a con artist, a scammer. He said, I believe Grant Cardone will be in prison, stuff like that, right? So obviously, Grant Cardone sued John Legere for $100 million for defamation. Now, that lawsuit is now over, and unfortunately, it did not end the way most of us wanted it to end. Grant Cardone did not lose. They decided to settle out of court. I believe there was no money exchanged at all, but what ended up happening was John Legere decided to apologize to Grant Cardone, and Grant Cardone is obviously showing his apology all over social media. He has an Instagram post. I'll pull it up right here. Apology letter from John Legere, January 11th, 2025. I have thought about the statements I made about Grant Cardone in June 2023, and on reflection, I regret making them. I apologize to Mr. Cardone, his wife, both his children, and Mr. Cardone's fans and followers, partners, investors, of course, Xenu as well. I added that part. It doesn't actually say that. Investors, to any person who may have been influenced by my statements. I asked that those who elected to redistribute and use the comments I made about Mr. Cardone as clickbait or headlines take those recordings down. I will not be doing that, but, nice of you to say that. Mr. Cardone's life story is admirable, and I respect his hard work to provide services to his customers and opportunities to Main Street investors. I look forward to watching Grant's continued progress in business and investing. Now that apology statement from John Legere, it kind of feels like the old hostage negotiation letter. It's not very sincere. Just my opinion, of course. Obviously, Grant would say otherwise. It's very, very sincere. John Legere felt so bad. He's crying, please, Grant, let me apologize to you. I disagree, right? Now, obviously, a lot of people are upset that John Legere decided to apologize to Grant Cardone. We wanted him to take it all the way to court. We wanted Grant Cardone to lose, but that's not happening. Now, from what I understand, John Legere initially agreed to apologize to Grant Cardone right after this lawsuit was filed, I think almost a year ago at this point. And Grant Cardone initially turned down the apology. He's like, no, I want to sue you for $100 million. I won't accept your apology. But now in 2025, he has decided to accept that apology, and there's no money being exchanged as far as I know. And the reason for that, in my opinion, are two reasons. The first reason, which I talked about in the other video a few months ago, was the fact that John Legere's team had uncovered a lot of information about what's going behind the scenes with Grant Cardone and Grant Cardone, Cardone Capital and stuff like that. I talked about one of the people that used to work for Grant Cardone, Shyman. Shyman revealed publicly that Cardone Capital tried to burn the place down by frantically destroying evidence so that law enforcement officials could not uncover wrongdoing by plaintiff and his companies. Based on this evidence, commenters have opinion that if Grant Cardone avoids prison, it will be a miracle. So obviously Grant has a lot of skeletons in the closet, and he didn't think John Legere's team would be able to find stuff like that. And then obviously Gary Brecka sued Grant Cardone early this year as well. So now Grant has to spend a bunch of his time and energy fighting this new lawsuit. So I think those are the two reasons why Grant Cardone initially decided to turn down the apology of John Legere, and now he has accepted it. And I think that's why the lawsuit was settled with John Legere. Now, like I said, I know most people are going to be upset that that happened. But if you're someone who's been through a lawsuit, or in my case, I've talked to many people who have been through lawsuits, even if you know you're going to win, a lawsuit is incredibly expensive and it's a massive drain on your time. Not just your money, but your time as well. Like this is your main focus. So I fully understand why, even if John Legere really hates Grant Cardone, why he would want to just apologize and get this over with. I understand that. From there, I want to get into the actual Brecka story. The first incident of us finding out that possibly Grant was being investigated by the FBI was from the John Legere case. Those documents came out. But now Gary Brecka, in his lawsuit, is starting to do interviews talking about why he is suing Grant Cardone, what happened with 10X Health, why that whole company imploded, and why they're both suing each other now. Now, I talked about in the past video how I reached out to Gary Brecka and his wife. I asked them to do an interview. They initially was like, oh yeah, we'll contact you. I haven't heard anything yet. Gary, I don't know why you don't want to come on my channel. I'll get you tons of views. I've done interviews in the past, gotten several 100,000 views on interviews I've done. So Gary, come on the channel. Let's talk about Grant. I'd love to talk to you about Grant. There's so many things I want to ask you. But until that happens, Gary Brecka has gone on a couple other channels. And just the other day, he went on a channel called Growing Up in Scientology. And I'll pull up the clip here. We'll talk about this. Now, if you don't know why he went on this channel, Grant Cardone is a Scientologist. A lot of people don't know it. He's one of the largest Scientologists on YouTube. He's given them millions and millions of dollars over the years, right? Growing Up in Scientology is run by a guy who was a former Scientologist. He has since left the cult, and so now he likes to call out other Scientologists, so obviously he wanted to do a video about Grant Cardone, since Grant Cardone is still a current Scientologist. Now, in this video, they talk about, I'll have a link to the full video if you want to check it out. It's over an hour long, an interview with Gary Brecka, but he specifically talks about the FBI investigation. So I want to play this clip for you right here.
Called Grant and said, hey, you're in Malibu. Why don't we jump over to Malibu? Why don't the three of us, Sage, my wife, and you and I, sit down and let's see if we can come to an agreement. We had an offer to buy their shares, and we also offered to sell them our shares at the same valuation. And at the time, Grant was very receptive to it. And he said, yeah, come out, let's sit and have a discussion. I want to do the right thing by you and the right thing by Sage. And so we flew out to LA, and we went to Grant's Malibu home. And it was really shocking, what he told us. We were on his, the back balcony there, a beautiful balcony out by the ocean. Grant and I were having a cigar. Sage was sitting on the couch next to Grant. It's around 7:00 on October 15th. And he very casually told us that Cardone Capital had been under investigation by a federal agency for the better part of 2 years, and that undercover federal agents were posing as employees inside of Cardone Capital. And Sage and my heart sank because we're also investors in Cardone Capital. When we sold our business, when we sold Streamline to 10X Health Ventures and Cardone Ventures, the money that we received from the sale, portion of the money was paid over a 3-year period, but the cash that we received from the sale, we immediately just put into Cardone Capital. When Grant told us that that organization was under a federal investigation and that they had employees that were posing as employees of Cardone Capital in furtherance of this investigation, which I assume was a criminal investigation, Sage got nauseous. When we got back in the car leaving Grant's Malibu home, it was a very heavy ride. And
you stepped in it now. The FBI is investigating, and they have undercover agents posing as your employees in the organization, Grant. That doesn't sound good. The FBI doesn't do that. They don't do that for shits and giggles, Grant. They think you're a seriously bad person, and they're infiltrating your organization, Grant. That is not good at all. I think you're in very, very serious trouble, guys. So that that was a pretty big revelation right there. And from what I understand, the initial video I did about the Gary Brecka lawsuit a few weeks ago, I initially thought that Gary Brecka sued Grant Cardone out of the blue, but it seems like Grant Cardone sued Gary Brecka, and then Gary Brecka sued him back. So this seems to be an issue of Grant Cardone constantly putting his foot in his own mouth. Because this is what happened with John Legere when he sued him. Information come out, the first documents that we saw about that lady Shyman saying that him and his company were burning documents to try and hide them from the FBI. And now Grant sues this other guy, and he starts doing public interviews. Oh yeah, Grant told us that the FBI is investigating him, and they have secret undercover operatives in the Grant Cardone organization. Grant, you're screwed, my friend. I don't want to, I think you might go to prison. I got to be honest with you. That's just my opinion. Got to be careful. Grant's throwing off all these lawsuits. Got to be careful, guys. But just my opinion, I think the FBI is going to take you down. Now, the FBI works very slowly, guys. So, everything obviously doesn't happen really quick. I actually talked about on my second channel, the BitConnect. If you know, BitConnect was a massive cryptocurrency scam that went down back in the early part of 2018. And they're just now taking two of the victims, two of the scammers. They're just now taking money from them. Years later, it's 5, 6, 7 years later, right? So the wheels of justice turn very slowly, guys. But I think Grant Cardone, he's in some serious shit, guys. I got to be honest with you. Now, he actually talks about it a little more. So let's take a look at the second clip right here.
Did Grant indicate, one, how did he know, since these investigations are usually confidential and sort of undercover? And did he indicate whether he knew that the investigation had already ended?
He didn't indicate whether or not it had ended. He indicated that nothing had come out of it yet. He didn't tell me exactly when it started. I think he did mention to Sage and I that day, on October 15th, that the investigation had been ongoing for 2 years. So we started to rewind how long we had been in business with them. And to be clear, he intimated that it was Cardone Capital and not Cardone Ventures. So right, we're investors in Cardone Capital. We are not partners there. We were both really kind of shocked how casual he was about telling us that. And it made my wife physically sick leaving the house that day. I never saw that they made investors aware of it. I don't know what the legality is, if there are the requirements for that disclosure. So I'm not accusing them of not disclosing something that they should have.
I mean, if you become aware of it, it sounds like it's material information to me, but what do I know? I grew up in a cult.
So there you go, guys. That information is now out there, according to Gary Brecka. Grant Cardone told him he knew that he was being investigated by the FBI for over 2 years. And it'll be interesting, now that the information is out there, what investors in Grant's company will think of that, because I'm sure this will go viral at some point. I got to be honest with you guys. I really am amazed at just how stupid Grant Cardone can be. Like I said, all of this information most likely never would have come out if Grant hadn't initiated these lawsuits. He's just pissing people off, and they start sending their lawyers in, or in this case, they do an interview, and they start revealing all this information about what's going on behind the scenes. Gary Brecka wouldn't have told anyone that Grant Cardone was being investigated if he wasn't being sued by Grant Cardone. So Grant, you're not the most intelligent fella. I got to be honest with you. Maybe you should just stop firing off these lawsuits. Maybe that would be a good idea. And honestly, if you're being investigated, you're probably going to need the money to protect yourself from the FBI. I'm just saying, Grant. If what he's saying is true, you're probably going to need that money in the near future. But there you go, guys. I'll have the link to the full interview if you want to check that out. And to Gary Brecka, Gary, I got to say, I sent a DM to your wife. She said, I gave her my email. She said she'd contact me. Never did. I want to talk to you, Gary. Come on the channel. I'll get you a bunch of views. We'll ask some nice questions about Grant Cardone. We'll get to the bottom of this on this channel, Gary. So please, come on my channel. We'll talk it all out. But let me know in the comments below, guys, what do you think? Do you think Grant Cardone, do you think the FBI is going to take Grant down? Are we going to see Grant Cardone behind bars with P. Diddy and and all the other celebrities? Let me know what you think in the comments below.